Mm-hmm.
Okay, temperature okay in here? Okay, if it feels too warm, it was freezing before. If it feels too warm, let me know and I'll bump it back up. Welcome everyone at home. Hi Cheryl. And welcome everyone here. Today, I thought we would just continue. We've been on a sort of a discussion thread about identity and who we really are and the things that prevent us from being more fully connected to who we are. I've been reading books by Alice Miller, and she talks about how our early experiences, our unacknowledged early experiences, can contribute to the perpetuation of violence. And it's something that's fairly straightforward, but I think that is out of the conscious awareness of a lot of us. We are more likely to go to the store or somewhere and have interactions with random people or relatives or other drivers on the road, and just attribute their behavior, their rude or otherwise unacceptable behavior, as a personality feature, right? And we can come up with a big list of names to describe, right, the source of that, right? Something that's more like a stable and enduring feature rather than, oh, that person, their history probably interferes with their ability to be here, to be in the present, right? Just like it interferes with our ability to be here in the present. And I'll give you an example of that. So, an example of that is, say, something that we picked up when we were a kid really innocently, like, oh, here's a good one because everybody's got, seems like a little bit of this. If we're not doing enough, like busy enough, then there could be something in the background that makes us nervous or says we don't want to be perceived as lazy, or some negative, right? That there's some negative quality associated with that. Like productive is good, not productive is the opposite, right? And then we've got these really defined, defined like ideas or beliefs about what productive is, what's productive, right? Work, right? We're getting something done. Or sometimes we all have this idea productive can only be stuff we dislike doing, right? Hard work. And then if we are, since we're uncomfortable, we might have been either shamed or called lazy, or heard parents talking about us to others and been embarrassed, or feel guilty if someone ever accused us of not pulling our weight, or even just seeing ourselves in relation to people around us. So if the people around us are like very workaholic or busy or extroverted, we might compare ourselves to them and feel like, oh, if I'm not doing as much as other people, then something is wrong with me. So there's that judgment that it's kind of out of conscious awareness because we don't realize we're doing it, because it's something that was a judgment, right? Some judgment was imposed on us in the past about our productivity. So then in the present, we just want to get rid of the feeling. We don't want to we don't want to sit around and go, oh, what's that icky feeling, when I'm just sitting here trying to take a little break from already, 8 hours of work today, or, right? Come home and sit. That instead, what we'll do is try to motivate ourselves to do more, right? Or sometimes our body will help us out and get sick so we can rest, right? Yeah. Justification. Yeah. But if we buy into, right, we believe the urgency, the feeling that I should be doing more, right? Then we're not going to question it. It's something that comes from our past. We've assumed it as a truth. We don't question it. And then we'll put that off on other people too, right? If other people appear to be not doing enough, then we'll judge them, either silently or through some kind of action or energy that we send out, or we'll put it off on our kids too. Because the discomfort that arises, we can't tolerate it. So to keep it out of our conscious awareness, the thing that was done to us, we actually wind up doing it to other people. Right? If something reminds us or gives us the yucky feeling that we don't want to have, right, the best thing to do is either attack it or, right, I don't even know it's there. I'm going to pretend I don't even see that. I'm going to ignore it, avoid it. And we can do this with all kinds of things, right? All kinds of things. Our coping mechanisms can be traced to things that make us uncomfortable, that are unexamined. Things in our history that are unexamined. And one of the really good reasons to come to a class like this, or to have a meditation practice, or to have a self-inquiry practice, is to be able to see through those patterns so that we can stop the repetition, so we can stop being a chain in the cycle, right? So we can stop passing it on to the next person, right? It's one of those cases where world peace actually begins right here. Yeah. Otherwise, our discomfort winds up being reflected to us, back to us by life, and we know it is, right? You only have to be in relationship for about 2 minutes to get uncomfortable, right? Somebody's going to do something that you don't like, and then the cycle starts, right? And it can be something so simple, so innocent, right? Like, if I go home, I feel like I've worked all day, right? I go home and the dishes aren't done, right? I get home and he's come home from work and eaten, and the dishes are sitting out, right? And so that part of me that can't tolerate my own resting, my own leaving the dishes on the counter, attacks him. What? You couldn't get those from the counter into the trash, right? And then on the receiving end, there's, right, what he's receiving then is judgment, probably some kind of shame, right? He's probably going to feel some kind of anger about being attacked. And I have passed it on, right? Someone did that to me and I just passed it on to him. So now he feels not enough, like he's not enough. And so there's the source. Can we stand to examine our feelings of not enoughness? We weren't born with those. That's not a feature of little babies, right? It's not. Can you feel that? Like, if as I say that out loud, can you feel the truth of that? That then the I'm not enough just as I am isn't a natural part of you.
Yeah.
You can feel that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But stopping it and changing it's something else.
Indeed it is.
Yeah.
It is. It requires the capacity to go into difficult feelings, to be with difficult feelings. So you could imagine, whatever that was done early on, and probably repeatedly, that incurred that belief or that conditioning. Right? It's conditioning. It's got different names: karma, the circle of life, that right, repetition, compulsion, whatever you want to call it. But until we can be with that part of ourselves that experienced that, which is usually a young part, unless we can be with that pain, we'll just keep pushing it reflexively, pushing it out of our conscious awareness, avoiding it. And that prevents us from being able to stop the cycle. And I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. Meditation is kind of like the setup, the beginnings of being able to hold the distance where we can watch our experience. Right? Sometimes they call it the witness function. It's an important, I think, necessary but not sufficient condition for resolving our past, right? Whatever our past issues are. And let me be clear, pretty much nobody gets to adulthood without some stuff. Nobody. Right? And that's not a reason to kind of blow it off and say, oh, well, I don't need to do anything about it because everybody's got stuff. And maybe some people don't feel any compulsion to do anything about their stuff. But if there's anything in your current consciousness that tells you that things aren't quite as you'd like them to be, right? You're not quite satisfied either with work or relationships, or right, the nagging something, right? Or that feeling of like, who am I? Like trying to fit that, the grinding of the gears, trying to figure out who am I really? Like, what am I really here for?
Or D, all of the above.
Yeah, they often go together. Then this is a really important piece of the journey. Some people, they're going to ignore it. They'll be on their deathbed and then they'll have the blink, right? The flash of light, and they'll, right? They can see the whole, like, beginning to end. Oh, it was all make believe, right? It was all conditioning. It was all, right? I lived my life in a dream, right? But some people want to wake up before they die. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. So developing this function, which it's not a simple, or I don't think it's an easy thing either. It takes some time to figure out what the heck this is, this being able to observe your experience. I mean, we can be so disconnected from ourself that when somebody says, oh, just watch your thoughts, watch them go by, or watch your emotions go by, or notice that you can feel your body, but you're not your body. For some people, that, like, they blow a gasket when they hear those words. They can't, like, you can see their eyes cross and it doesn't compute. What do you mean I'm not my thoughts? I'm nothing without my thoughts. My thoughts are everything. They tell me everything that I need to know about life.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And the initial shock of that, sometimes people, right? I'm not going back there again, right? Get people that come here and never come back, right? Because they think they can meditate and it's just another, magic pill. It'll make me happy. I saw somebody I follow on Twitter the other day was talking about that we should abandon this burden of happiness and pursuing happiness, that this idea of happiness it's kind of like perpetuating the perpetuating like the suffering, right? If we think there's a place we can get to where it's all just going to be right, right, then we'll keep for not seeing the present, and we'll keep on looking for that. Happiness is out. It's out there somewhere. I'll never forget. I heard Adyashanti say, there are these people who they'll go to retreats all over the world. They'll go to India and do these silent retreats and chase all these gurus. And if they're really unlucky, they'll have a fantastic experience one time. And then they'll chase that. They'll try to repeat that for the rest of their lives because they don't realize that was just an experience. Right? Mistaking it for something that it's not. All experience comes and goes. Right? And that we've got the relative existence and we've got the absolute or the spiritual existence, and they're inseparable. Right? On the spiritual side, lots of times people will wake up and they're like, oh, and they're kind of up here for a little while. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. Right? I can see. Right? Everything I believed is a dream. It's not real. Right? And then they fall, crash back to earth, and then they can feel how yucky it is, and they just want to go back up here. They just want to get back up here. But these two things can't exist without each other. So the spark, that the part that's looking out of my eyes at you, that's looking out of your eyes back at me, that's never been touched by trauma or anything that's ever happened to you, it needs this physical form to experience life. Right? I heard Adya say one time to somebody who's very infatuated with past lives and reincarnation, it's like, it doesn't matter where you go or what you do or what you did before this life or after this life. He's like, you don't own this body. Life just manifests as form at every opportunity because it's so in love with itself. Life just wants to be here and experience itself, but it needs a form to do that. And so the human can't exist without the spark, consciousness, right? It needs consciousness to animate this form. The scientists cut us open and they can't find the source, right? What's the difference between the person who's animated and alive or just all their organs are working, but there's no consciousness there, no alive person? They can't find the spark. What makes somebody alive versus not? Right? It's a mystery. We need the mystery to animate this form, and we need the form so the mystery can dance, can play. Right? They need each other. So on the level of the the mystery, there's no such thing as trauma. But then when it comes into form, right, we have, right, the yucky stuff, the stuff that causes us pain, which is mostly just stuff that we are not able to allow into our conscious awareness. Because what happens at that point, instead of just stuff moving through, just experiencing as it is, pain, emotional, physical, whatever, instead what happens is the part of us that's conditioned goes, oh, there's pain there, I'm going to push against it, muscles contract, nothing moves, right? Anger, sadness, right? Whatever it is, it can't move through. So it just stays there. It's a stalemate. Our body tightens up and we just stay right there and keep blaming the thing that happened near us for the reason that we feel this.
Mm-hmm.
So our practice is really about seeing through the patterns, right? Seeing, oh, wow, there's this, something happens when I make contact with people in authority, right? Either I get scared or I get pissed off or I get, something happens there, right? Or when people seem weak or whiny or needy, then I react this other way, right? Either I'm like, oh, or I get mad at them, or I want to help them. I want to fix them all. I want to help them. I want to save every homeless person, right? But we generally pay attention to the urge, the urgency of the feeling, and we don't go underneath of it. Like we don't hang out with it. We don't say, oh, there's this part of me right now that's uncomfortable. What happens if I hold space for it and I stay with it and I don't run away? I don't run away and go try to fix people and volunteer or, right, go to the gym, or what if I stay right here with the craving, the urgency, the sadness, the anger, right? And notice that the intolerability feeling, the like, I'll die if I let myself feel this. What if we let ourselves touch into just like a tiny, like a molecule of that? Right? That's a start. That's more than no, right? Not at all. A molecule is a great start. And if a molecule's too big, then can I hover just around the edges of that? Can I just let myself notice the very edge of the feeling of the sadness? Right? And what does that seem like? Like, where does that seem to live in here? Where's the stuckness at? Is it like pit of the stomach? Not here. Heaviness here. Oh, I suddenly get a headache, right? Or my jaw gets really tight. Can I notice? Can I be present enough with myself to notice what happens? Can I be curious? Because as soon as we feel discomfort, generally what happens is, oh no, this is going to last forever. And how can I get rid of it as quickly as possible? And just food for thought, that when we want to get rid of a part of our experience, there's a chance that that's not the first person. We are not the first person who couldn't hold space for what we're feeling in that moment. Right? So if we can be curious about the ways we never even had an inkling that it was possible or that it would be a good thing to do, to hold space, like to stay there and create some space and let this feeling be present, let it be there. There's no way we could have ever tried it until we got curious about it. Because most of the time what happens, we touch. Right? It's great when we meditate and we have it, oh, right, we're buzzing and right, just a little bit above the rest of the humans floating, right? But then as soon as we come back down, right, the discomfort, and how can I get back to the happy place? Right? It's reflexive, it's instantaneous, right? As soon as we start to suffer, it's like we go into a trance, we fall asleep. So how can we stay awake? The meditation is the practice for staying awake, and it's also the practice for how we relate to ourselves if we can stay awake to what's happening. The way that we relate to ourselves is curious. Oh, what is that about? What's that intensity about? Oh, what the story that's going along with this? Oh, he did and she said, and right? The story. So we notice there's a physical feeling, there might be emotions, there's a story, there's an intensity, there might be a reaction to the story, the emotions, and the intensity, right? A secondary reaction like yuck or fear or pissed off or just my legs want to run. And can we notice that? Can we hold space for our own experience? And if we can do that for ourselves, then we will be able to do it for others also. And that's actually the greatest gift that we can ever give anyone, is to be able to hold space for whatever is happening with them. Because what happens when somebody does that for us? When someone holds space for us, no matter what we're feeling like, what's the message that we get? Right? They're not giving advice. They're not telling us where we screwed up. If they just listen, they just hold space and don't judge, right? The feeling of that. Yeah. That's where change happens. That's where healing occurs. That's where somebody can experience themselves differently. I can be a mess and people aren't running away or judging me or trying to fix me. Wow. That's love. That's what we are. Yeah. And that's what love can do. Any final comments or anything before we break?
4 of us girls went out and celebrated my friend's daughter's birthday. She would have been 30. So we went out eating, and my friend did that. She goes, cry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Who cares where we are? She goes, do it. Just
Yes.
let it go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not having to pretend.
Mm-hmm.
What a great gift.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little breather. Take 5, and we'll come back and have meditation. Okay. Cool. Okay, we're going to start our guided meditation now. Okay, so just start to let yourself get a sense of yourself in your chair. And feel the connection that your feet make with the ground, connecting the rest of your body to the ground, and connecting you also to the feeling, the felt sense of solid ground. And just letting yourself notice what that's like. And perhaps noticing anything that seems like a tiny positive shift as you feel into ground and the support of the chair. And as you feel ready, you'll start to let your attention move to noticing your head. Noticing all the parts of your head, the top, and your face, and the sides, including your temples and ears and jaw, and then the back of your head, back of your neck. And you're just going to let yourself notice where attention seems to go as you notice face and head and back of neck. And you can see if there's any shift possible by letting your eyes sink back into their sockets, or letting your tongue go completely relaxed in the bottom of your mouth, or imagining letting your ears drop slightly. And just seeing what that does to your perception of sensation in the face, jaw, head, and neck. And perhaps you notice any areas of tension that might loosen a bit, and just notice the little bit of difference. And then for a moment, also turn your attention to those places where your attention did not naturally go, right? So some places might seem blank or absent or uninteresting. And you're just going to let yourself take note of those areas for a moment. And then gently preparing to shift your attention to your torso, away from head and face, leaving whatever sensations are still there in the head and face, exactly where you found them, as they are. And scanning down first the front of your body and then the back of your body. You could start and notice your throat, in your upper chest and heart area. Remembering that your only job is to notice as best you can, right? Whatever you're experiencing or however you're experiencing it, is fine. It can be impatience or boredom, restlessness, irritation, anything at all. See if that can be allowed as well. Just noticing as you continue to scan down diaphragm or that area between chest and belly. And then down to noticing belly. And then lower abdomen, right? That part of your torso below your belly button. And then scanning down the back side of your torso, noticing your upper back, letting your attention fall slowly to notice shoulder blades and the area between the shoulder blades. And in the middle of your back. And then your lower back. All the way down to your hips and your bottom where you are seated in the chair. And just like we did with the head, you're going to notice where there might be tension or where your attention seems drawn in your torso, front or back. And you can offer those areas some space. Right? Imagine putting some space around areas of discomfort or breathing in and out of those areas for a little bit. And can you do that without any expectation or pressure for the discomfort to go away? Just holding space for the discomfort. The way a mother would pick up and comfort an upset child. Right? Just gently holding space and attention for the uncomfortable parts and noticing what happens as you do that. And then switching your attention for a moment to places that seem blank or uninteresting, or that your attention doesn't seem to automatically notice. And see if you can be curious about those areas in your torso for a moment. And then preparing to shift your attention again to notice your limbs, arms and legs. Hands and feet. Notice where arms and legs connect to your torso at the shoulder and hip joints. And you can check for various sensations in your limbs, tingling, coolness or warmth, vibration, feelings of flow or of space, spaciousness, air, or flow that could be fluidity like water or some other, or like the feeling of water going through sand. Or perhaps there's nothing at all really happening in your arms or legs or hands or feet. You might take a moment to notice how connected they feel to the rest of your body, how much they feel like they belong to you, or how much they feel accessible or useful, right? Or do they feel disconnected? And then again, for a moment, using your limbs now to notice any areas where your attention did not notice anything interesting, or perhaps attention didn't automatically go to some part of arms or legs. And you just notice that without any judgment. See if you can get any curiosity on board about that. And then gently preparing to release your attention from your limbs, from arms and legs, to find the place where breathing seems to be happening. Sort of like a homing device. Can you let your attention, without forcing it or driving it, can you let it gravitate to, float to the place where breathing seems to be happening? Breathing in and breathing out seems to be happening. Without trying to control the breath or change it in any way. Letting yourself notice the quality of it in this moment. Whether there seems to be any constriction around the breath, or it seems to be labored or relaxed, fast or slow. Seeing if you can pinpoint the place of greatest intensity of sensation of breath. Whether that's at the nose or throat, or belly, chest, rising and falling. Letting yourself rest there for a moment, either in the movement of the breath or the sensation of the air, or even just the general rhythmicity of the in and out. Or perhaps resting at the space at the end of the out breath. Not trying to change it or extend it in any way, but seeing, can you allow yourself to rest there in that pause at the very end of the out breath. And as you rest there in some part of your breathing, can you allow awareness to also be aware of other things that are happening in the space of the present moment? letting attention go freely as it would like to things that it just seems to automatically go to. You might notice sounds coming from either inside the room or the building or outside. You could notice the ambient sounds coming from outdoors. Or from the computer. Or the feeling of your chair. Or your clothes. Or you could notice the feeling of sleepiness or restlessness or fatigue or achiness. Whatever your experience is, whatever's happening in the present moment, you can notice if thoughts seem to come. And just notice thoughts come and notice when they go. You could notice if they're about the present or the past. You could notice if emotion seems to come and when it goes. You could notice if some part of you resists allowing some part of your experience. And as a way of supporting yourself in the allowing, you can introduce this question as an experiment. What happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? What would that be like? If just for this brief time, I'm not efforting or in opposition to anything that's happening in the present moment, what's that like? What's the experience of, for this short time, relinquishing control, not trying to fix anything or make anything different? And if you get distracted, you can always come back as soon as you remember, oh yeah, all I'm doing is noticing what happens when I allow everything to be as it is. I'm just conducting this experiment for this short time. Being curious about what happens when I allow everything to be as it is. Right? Doing the exact opposite of what I'm doing most of the time. What happens if I give up struggle and effort just for this short space of time? And what does that feel like? What does the experience of that seem to be like? Perhaps there's silence. Perhaps you can feel yourself come to rest in some part of your body, around your breath or your belly or in your heart area or in your feet as they contact the ground. Can you allow yourself to touch into the stillness that's already there right now? And what's that like when you touch into that stillness? Touching into the silence. And coming back as often as you need to. There's no problem. If thought comes or you get distracted, you just come back. And you can take these last 2 minutes now as we reach the end of the meditation to savor that stillness, savor that silence, letting yourself rest there for just a little bit longer. Just a little bit more time to notice the feeling of being without effort. The experience of letting go of even trying to meditate well. Chucking that idea out the window. Allowing yourself to just be. What you really are has no argument with life in this moment. Has no problem with anything that's happening right now. Just seeing if you can feel inside somewhere the truth of that for yourself. Investigating for yourself. And as you feel ready, starting to send some energy into your arms and legs and offering gentle movement to fingers and toes, giving yourself plenty of space for transition. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to be with you this evening. Namaste.
Namaste.